with an unsung hero. 237 campaign. 237 cleanup campaign has been going on for a while now, but very few people have heard about it. I was very fortunate that a good friend of mine, Dr. Christian Tekwe, told me about I Am Cameroon. And through I Am Cameroon, gotten to know about 237 cleanup campaign. A campaign that has been designed to clean up the face of a beautiful country. A campaign that was designed to give a country a fresh coat of paint, so to speak, or facelift, a new facade. I know some of you will be wondering, but who are you to talk about this? Well, very good afternoon if you're on the East Coast. Good morning if you're on the Central Standard Time. My name is Gideon For-mukwai. Consider myself the story warrior, product of Africa, produced in Asia, packaged in America, and distributed around the world. I have the utmost pleasure of bringing our guest to our audience this afternoon, Mr. Arrey Obenson, a gentleman who has seen the world differently. In the country known as 237, there are about 30 million people. Most saw a problem and they let it be. But this gentleman saw a problem and he said, I want to do something different about it. I'm not just going to talk about a problem, I'm going to find a way to solve this problem. It's a problem that I personally have faced because I remember in 2014, I flew with Mr. Neba from Singapore. Neba is a Barclays Bank executive to Cameroon to 237. And in the city of Douala, we wanted to find a quiet place where we could find Wi Fi, we could sit at our laptops and work. We walked and walked and walked and walked. Most of the places we saw were okay, but they were not very decent. We knew that something was clearly wrong. There was a lot of trash on the streets. There was a lot on the streets that did not look very pleasant. And we went away, we did not do anything. But in the case of Mr. Obenson, he said, no, something can be done. 237 deserves better. So it's my utmost pleasure to welcome Mr. Obenson today to tell us about 237 cleanup campaign. Welcome aboard, Mr. Obenson. Please tell us about yourself first before we get into this very fascinating topic because there are millions of people that want to know what can we do to give 237 a cleaner facelift. Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today and to engage with you and with your audience and to tell this story. My name is Arrey Obenson. I am originally from Cameroon. I was born in Victoria, in Limbe, and I went through my secondary education in St. Joseph's College, Sase, and on to Casbambili and went on to Yaounde University where I studied law. I moved on to practice law in Cameroon. I'm a lawyer by profession. I practiced law in Cameroon for several years before leaving Cameroon to join an international organization called Junior Chamber International. Whilst I was practicing law in Cameroon, I had the opportunity to find this organization that is called Junior Chamber International. I became a volunteer member of that organization. And as a volunteer member of that organization, we did community projects. One of the community projects led me to the path that I've taken today. And it was essentially that we went to the General Hospital in Limbe, and we were trying to do a project, and we realized that there were 14 wards in the hospital and none of them had a functioning toilet. At the age of 25, we decided that we were going to, that was not something that we accept. I was the president of my local organization and I backed on that initiative. And it opened my eyes to the power of what an individual can do or what young citizens can do. Because Junior Chamber's mission was an organization that provided opportunities for young people to create positive change within their communities. And so I was involved in that organization, and it opened my eyes because within a period of 6 months, we were able to build 9 toilets in the hospital. And so it also drew the attention of the headquarters of this organization. And that's how I found myself working in the United States. And my path has taken me to 106 countries across the world. I have conducted several projects in different parts of the world, and now I serve as president and CEO of the International Institute of St. Louis, and where we work with the community to try to build a more integrated, more multicultural society by creating opportunities for immigrants and refugees to thrive in order to build a more prosperous, more welcoming, and more healthy region for everyone.
Very interesting. I have heard echoes of your work in junior chambers. I have heard echoes of what you did in Victoria, the amazing city that probably some have said arguably is the cleanest city in 237. I've heard echoes of most of what you've done, but specifically the one that I got exposed to was when you started a campaign during the months of COVID to help hospitals in 237. I like to use 237 to cope with the scourge of a disease that was ravaging all through the world. That's when I really saw your leadership at the forefront, your integrity, your commitment, and those echoes that I heard for many years before they manifested right in front of me. So I'm very impressed. I'm very happy that you are pioneering efforts to clean up 237. 237 needs a major cleanup. Without a doubt, I wish all cities in 237 could look a little bit like Limbe or Victoria. Because Victoria has exemplified itself as one of the cleanest cities in the country. Is it because your genesis was in Victoria, or is it because of Junior Chamber? I can't. I don't think. I don't want to divert into that so quick. But what I really want to ask you is, what inspired you to come up with 237 cleanup campaign to mobilize 5 million people? What inspired you to get that going?
If you don't mind, let me just start by just coining what the organization is like, because it's the philosophy that really inspires everything we do. So I Am Cameroon. It's just a movement that inspires, educates, and engages Cameroonians to accept and assume responsibility for the development of the nation. That's what we do. So we have spent since the days of COVID, we've spent all through COVID, we spent months, almost every other week, engaging with young people across Cameroon. And contrary to what we in the diaspora may think, the next generation of Cameroonians are in a place where they have a strong conviction that they have to play a role in building the future of Cameroon. And it's in our interest to cultivate that. And this is through several engagements with these young people, asking what were some of the challenges that they face in Cameroon. And this whole conversation around the country looking really like one big garbage bin kept coming up. And that's how you establish a need in the society, is engaging with stakeholders. It's not imposing on stakeholders. It's engaging with them and understanding and listening to them, and then finding that common denominator that can bring everybody together. So that's what we did. And that's how we identified it. Now, over the years, I've known that they do cleanups. For occasionally, some cities have cleanup days and all of that. But those have not made the impact, right? And so to create transformational change, you really need an audacious goal. In fact, I call it naive audacity. You
Interesting.
have to be somewhat naive in your audacity. And that's where picking this goal of 5 million people was being naively audacious. And it when we even started it out, we were unsure that we would get to 5 million. But the goal was for people to see this big, because the only way you can change people's minds is creating a big impact on them. And we felt that if we could mobilize this number of people to come out at one time, it would create such an impact on onlookers, on naysayers, on people who were curious, who have been asking whether this is possible. That if we could mobilize this huge number of people, over 5%, or approximately 5% of the yeah, over 5% of the country's population, that is the kind of impact that you want to have. And so that's why we came up with this big, audacious goal. And you have to get people to buy. That's where, in our mission, you have to inspire people. Then you have to educate them. And then you have to engage them. And so we implemented these three aspects. And that's how we arrived at this goal.
Very interesting because it started with a need that is so commonplace all
Yeah.
across the country, a
Yeah.
need that seemed to have come from a place of nobody taking ownership. Yet, the youth, as you say, wanted to take ownership to do something about it. What you did was you expanded the need, and you said naively optimistic. And yes, when I saw 5 million, I'm like, 5 million what? Where are you gonna get 5 million from? I was wondering, but from what you're saying, once the need was established, you wanted to magnify it so that we get people's attention. And I want to give you credit with that. So, from the moment this was conceived till now, how many people have participated? About how many? Maybe you have an accurate number, maybe you don't have an accurate number, but I know that if you can raise 5 million out of 25 million, a country of 25 million, it's definitely going to get to a tipping point where everybody's talking about this issue that is in front of everyone's eyes, in front of everyone's home or city or village across the country. So, about how many people are active now?
So let me just tell you the journey that this took us. We kicked up this campaign sometime in early this year, at about March, and it had been very challenging because most of the people that we engaged, especially in the diaspora, had the obvious questions. Why is the government not doing it? How sustainable can it be? What difference would it make? How is it possible that you can raise 5 million people? You know, and we just kept on doing town hall meetings, engaging audiences in Cameroon and in the diaspora every other Saturday. And gradually we were beginning to build in interest. We brought in a partnership with a Cameroonian group called Ex Malaya to perform at an event in the diaspora in Washington, D.C. to raise money. We failed. We lost about $8,000 in it. So what you think in your mind at that point is this project is a failure, but we didn't. We went on to engage with from the partnership with an organization in Cameroon called Let's Do It that has been doing small cleanups in different parts of the country from time to time. And we convinced them that we should take on this big, audacious goal. We then said we need to bring together stakeholders from across the country. So we started mobilizing not-for-profit organizations or associations in Cameroon. And before we knew it, we were at over 250 of those organizations that volunteered that they would be interested in this project. Then we convened a stakeholder meeting. So brought all of those as organizations to Yaounde, and we asked them whether they thought that this project was possible. We wanted to hear from them that they had to believe in it themselves. And these young people said they would do it. And then they decided to have regional representatives. They elected themselves regional representatives to monitor the progress of the project. And then after that stakeholder meeting, we did a media engagement. We were on radio and TV and everything talking about it. So we started getting interest of included um, the mobile telephone company, MTN Cameroon. We had Red Plast, which is a waste management company, and Eco Green. So all of these things came together as a result of the progress that we were making. Now I want you to, MTN sent a text message to 15 million Cameroonians about the cleanup.
Hmm.
And so that's how we were able to reach people, right? I cannot tell you, and then we went from 2,500 volunteers to 5,000 volunteers in a week, to 8,000 volunteers in 2 weeks, to 10,500 volunteers. By the time we were printing material for our volunteers, and we had more volunteers than we ever projected. The more volunteers we had, the more communities we reached, right? And so eventually, I can tell you now, I will talk a little bit about how the project was executed. I believe that we have engaged more than 5 million Cameroonians at this point. Whether it's 5 million that have gone out to actually trash, I cannot tell you. But I know that in terms of an engagement, the messaging has reached 15 million people. Right. And on the day of September 16, which was World Cleanup Day, we saw a massive mobilization across the country, from north to south, east to west. The people came out and did what they had to do.
Wow, that is interesting. So the messaging has reached over 15 million people. More than 5 million people have been impacted in some shape or form. And I know
Yeah.
that Cameroon is going through a difficult moment. The country is literally, some people say, at crossroads. There's a conflict, there's issues, there's divisions. For you to be able to bring in that number of people, that tells you something, that people still love their homeland. They want to see the beautiful country. They want to see a country that takes its place within the concert of nations in defining its place and in defining the sub-region and the future of the children. Now, that is very ambitious. And I'm thinking this is within a year. The 237 campaign has been around. And you've mobilized civic partners, you've mobilized corporate partners like MTN, as you talked about. Let me just ask you, which are some of the regions that have been most active in embracing this message? Then we probably go from there to talk who are some of the key partners. But first, which regions are embracing this message?
Yeah. Naturally, the larger cities have been more active. I would say Douala has really led. Yaounde has come in second. Adamawa in the extreme north, I would say, has come in third. Believe it or not, the activation in Bamenda was incredible. Despite the circumstances, we saw massive activation. Boya as well. So if this was, the one region that I was worried did not have the kind of impact was the eastern region. But that was just a communication delay, right? Because but then we started seeing publications in the newspaper about the impact of the work in the eastern region. Every region in Cameroon participated with obvious impact, really more visible in the larger cities like Yaounde, Douala, Bafoussam, the Fumban. Um, so I think it was all over the country.
Very insightful. Now, I bet big partners like the MTNs, and then the one that you mentioned that really caught my attention is the Let's Do It. That's
Yeah,
an organization we've not heard much about. I love the organizations that have not had the spotlight. They've not
yeah,
had the fame, but they came in strong and help you in getting the message out. Tell me a little bit about that organization, because it seems like it was a nucleus. It was one of those organizations that help you to transform your message from
yeah,
diaspora centered to home centered. And we'll talk about the challenges of being out living in the diaspora and yet running an organization that works at home. Tell me about Let's Do It a little bit.
Yeah. We who live in the diaspora, some of us that have had the opportunity to travel the world, built an incredible network. I think you're leveraging your network as well. At my work in JCI, had been very, very instrumental in developing what a day called World Cleanup Day, September 16th, which was started by a JCI organization in Estonia in 2008, where they mobilized 50% of the people in Estonia to clean up the country in one day, and it's never gone back. Inspired by that story, I was invited, and I took that idea and made it a global. We brought them to a global event in 2015 and made a commitment to expand this project globally. That project, and I went back in 2018, invited by the president of the country to come and speak at what they call their annual conference, which they do every January. And so I have been involved with a World Cleanup Day campaign in different parts of the world and not in Cameroon. We've done little projects in Cameroon. And so when this idea came up, I went into my network and I said, I know the people of the World Cleanup Day, which have a foundation called Let's Do It. Let's Do It means let's just go clean it.
Very done.
So, but I didn't know that they had a representation in Cameroon. So I called World Cleanup Day, even invited them to one of our town hall meetings to educate us about waste management and cleanup. And they said, by the way, we have a representative in Cameroon. We have and Maimuna. And so they introduced me to her, and I called her, and she said, I've been waiting for this call all and I said, why? She said, somehow she knew that we just had to do something together. And I said, I've never met her. I don't know her. But she said, my work has had a lot of impact on her. And so it was just fortuitous that we were connecting. And so I said to Maimuna, I know you're part of Let's Do, and I know you've been doing some cleanup here and there in Cameroon, but I have a big goal for you. We had to mobilize 5 million people to clean up Cameroon on World Cleanup Day. And she said, she calls me boss. And she said, boss, you think that that's possible?
I'm glad she didn't say, boss, are you crazy?
Yeah. I said, think about it. We'll make it happen. And so let's clean up, let's do it. It's currently in about 147 countries. And Cameroon included now, and they this an organization that's involved in waste management, in educating people about waste management and cleaning up the environment, and just has a very straightforward purpose. Let's do it. They just do it. If you see a problem going on, just do it. And so they've been focused on, and Maimuna Rio has been incredible. It's just the person that we needed. In Cameroon as well, whilst we are in the diaspora, we also have a president of I Am Cameroon in Cameroon. So we signed that MOU and we started working together. And then we brought in other organizations. Another big organization that joined us is JCI Cameroon, which is my former organization that joined in this campaign. And then there were too many other organizations that came on board to be part of this initiative.
Very interesting.
But it's a rolling stone that gathers moss.
A lot of moss.
Somebody has to push that stone for it to start moving, and then it takes other people along with them. We had the choice, or we had the choice, like everybody else, to say, yes, there was something wrong, but that's not for us to do. Or we had the choice to empower people, to inspire people to do something about it, which is what we did. We went down the hard path, the difficult path, the path of uncertainty, but the path that's right, the path that is necessary.
I bet there have been a lot of challenges overcoming the political naysayers, overcoming all kinds of divisive and greedy messages and people that look down on the goals of 237 cleanup. What have been some of those challenges that you've had to overcome? That means uh, choosing to light a candle rather than cursing the darkness. What have been some of those challenges that you've had to overcome, whether they are political, whether they're social, they're economic? I bet there must be, knowing the complexities of Cameroon that we all know about.
Yes, there have been challenges. Um, Conducting a project like this takes enormous resources. And so we've been trying to raise money to be able to deliver on this project. We had a big goal in terms of creating a nationwide communication strategy that we were going to engage a company, a marketing company in Cameroon to partner with us to do it. But we just couldn't raise that amount of money. The response we were getting from the diaspora was not, and we were basically saying there's 4 million Cameroonians in the diaspora. If every one of us could just give $1, we would have $4 million. We will clean up Cameroon. We'll put in place a waste management company. We'll put in place a recycling company with $4 million. If everybody just gave $10, $10, can you imagine what that would be? If everybody would have $40 million, we will create 44,000 jobs in Cameroon, and maybe even more, and create another 850 entrepreneurs in this process, 850 to 1,000 entrepreneurs, if everybody in the diaspora just gave $10. But let's say not everybody. Let's say 1,000 people gave $100. We'll have $1 million to be able to implement. But the response was not forthcoming. And the reason it's not forthcoming is some people believe that Cameroon, there's nothing good that can come out of Cameroon, so it should not be done. And whatever their reasons are, I respect everybody's reason. But at the end of the day, the only way that Cameroon and Africa is going to emerge on the global scene to become an example for the rest of the world is, the bottom line is, if we recognize the human dignity in every other African. Why would we not expect the best for every child that is born in Cameroon or in Africa? Why should some people live in large fences and right across the street is a heap of garbage that is festering, creating festering disease that is affecting children who cannot afford air conditioning? So if we think about the dignity of the human dignity, it must be the basis of development. We do it not for any government. We do it not for any corporation. We do it for the people, because those people deserve human dignity. And that should be the underlying motivation beyond the politics, beyond the linguistic barriers that we have, beyond the ethnic barriers that we have. The common denominator is human dignity. And because human dignity, we want to have, people are entitled, it's a right to have a clean environment. And so we look above those challenges. Those challenges, I would say, a principal challenge, financial. Secondly, the next big challenge is overcoming this hurdle of people not necessarily believing in that something can be different in Africa, something can be different in Cameroon. That is the mindset that we whether in the diaspora or at home or across the world, we need to have that mindset of believing in what is possible if we fix our minds to it.
Okay.
That those are some of the obstacles that we face. Besides of the challenges on the ground with what's happening in the northwest and southwest, those challenges when to go in materials being, materials being stuck up in Santa and not being able to reach Bamenda, because of the lockdown and things like that. We face those normal challenges. Production times in being able to produce enough material to and then distribution across the country were all the kind of challenges that we faced.
Incredible. I see challenges even cleaning up my home, which is basically, I don't know, a few thousand square feet. And I am humbled by people that have larger homes and they get them look so clean. But it's important to do it. And sometimes I choose not to delegate it. I choose to do it, whereas getting the mop and doing it myself, because it humbles me and grounds me in getting things done. Taking ownership is what I hear you saying. It's about human dignity, it's about ownership. And if we reside in the place of pointing fingers, the authority should have done this, the authority should have done that. Nothing will be done. But the question I have for you, Mr. Benson, is if, let's
Yeah.
say, you get this momentum, you have 5 million people that show up and clean up, how would you continue to perpetuate that so that it doesn't seem like it's a single flash of light that disappears? Because I say that with the understanding that sometimes you have beautiful infrastructure in Cameroon, beautiful buildings that have rusted away, roads that were constructed but have never been repaired. How can you, as head of 237 cleanup, ensure that if Limbe looks clean, Oya looks clean, Manfe looks clean, Bamenda looks clean, Banjun looks clean, whereas in Gaundere, it's Yokaduma, all these places, if they look clean, it should not just be for a day because we have 365 days in a year. What are you doing to reduce the effect of rust, the effect of people not taking ownership?
Here's what I'm going to say, and I said this to somebody who asked me this question. Every day we wake up and we take a shower, knowing that we will have to take a shower again tomorrow because our bodies don't remain clean. That's the same thing I say with the garbage. Even if we don't continue tomorrow, the tons of plastics that we have taken out of our gutters, our farmlands, our fields, as a result of what we did on September 16 in Cameroon, gives a new lease on those rivers, on the fish, increase in production, reduction in mosquito infections that lead to malaria, typhoid, diseases. Even this is just a starting point. Even if it doesn't continue tomorrow, the impact of what we have done in one day, this is the largest civic action in Cameroon's history. And I'm waiting for anyone to challenge that. But this is the largest civic action. What we did in one day, the minds that have been transformed, the people who have now embraced responsibility to do it, the people who have now made the decision that they would never let their streets go back to where they were before. That's the impact that we have now. Tomorrow,
I think we're getting frozen there a little bit.
work begins for what lies ahead. And this is what we are and with some organizations on the ground. The first partnership that is a company called Red Plast. As we speak, from the cleanup that we did on September 16, we distributed large mosquito nets that people filled and that are now, once they were filled with plastics, they did what they call geolocation, meaning that they pinpointed where they put the plastics. And we have trucks going across the country to pick up the mosquito nets. And they're going to go back and they're going to weigh those the plastic. And we're going to give you the total tons of plastics that were collected in one day. So that's going on. Now with this company, we found another partnership with a company called EcoGreen, and EcoGreen is going to be buying all of these plastics and recycling them to produce their other products. But they're buying the plastics. The funds from buying the plastics is going to go back to the associations that mobilize to clean it. Those associations are now going to invest these funds into regular cleanups. So every month they'll clean up, they'll collect. There is now an incentive that has been created for them to be able to make this as a sustainable way of life. And that's what that's where the next step comes, is developing a national waste management plan that defines how waste can be collected, separated, and processed. Or by process, I mean whether it's by way of recycling or by way of composting and all of that. So that's the next step. And why is that possible? We have now established a network of volunteers and volunteer organizations across the country that have done it, that are invested in doing it, and now have an incentive to do it because there's a slight steady flow of revenue that can inspire them to do it.
So,
But we do not hope to end it. Yes, go ahead.
are you bypassing the authorities who collect taxes, who owe a responsibility to the people to clean up the streets? Tell me, what is the relationship with the authorities? And in terms of, yes, you have civic society involved. What is the relationship, and who is going to take charge? And if so, how often? And I know there's so much you unpack there, but I really need to know a little bit about the
No, no, no,
relationship
no.
with
Let me give credit. We in this campaign, when we started this campaign, we had no government involvement in it. But by the time we were conducting this project, we had 5 ministries involved, 5 government ministries. We had every divisional officer, district officer in Cameroon was notified by the Minister of Urban Development and Planning about the campaign and asking for their support. The governor of Littoral actually did the symbolic kickoff of the campaign on the 13th of September. Mayors across the country were also informed and advised to participate in the campaign. We do not see this as bypassing authority. We see this as being complementary. We hope that our work inspires a public-private partnership. What that will look like is to be defined. But in this process, we do not get any obstacles from any government at any level. If anything, we got support. I personally had no engagement with any government official. However, this is where leveraging the young people on the ground, because this is their communities, they led the initiative of engaging with the local administrative authorities. And we had collaboration so far for that particular, so far in the campaign. We've not run into any roadblocks and do not by any way intend to bypass. What we're doing is creating a system that is eventually going to support. And there's a national company called Hisakam that does cleaning, that by all indications has been overwhelmed and it's by just the sheer volume of work, and they have also had some management challenges. But in the wake of that collapse, or that not happening, not working, we cannot ignore the impact that is having on the livelihood of the people. And we cannot, just as during the pandemic, when we saw that COVID was coming, we didn't have to wait to ask government what we should do. We knew that it was going to affect people, and we took action. And we collaborated where we could with government, but we took action. And why was it successful? I always start with the need. If you establish the need, people don't know, during the pandemic, we did a survey. We conducted a survey with nurses and doctors to identify what their needs were. And based on those needs, we took initiative. So once it's established, people must take ownership of the solution. The world has seen so many projects, good ideas go to die because they're imposed on communities. We are engaging communities to find solutions within those communities. And we only bring resources and inspiration and education to support them.
Now, I know it takes a lot to move a, a battleship. This is like a battleship. And it turns out the captain of this battleship is not in the command station, is thousands of miles away. And for good reasons. Like you said, you work with the Institute of International Development in St. Louis, if I got the name right, but you're working from thousands of miles away. And I wonder if somebody, whether in diaspora or whichever part of the world, wants to contribute, how can they find 237 cleanup campaign to contribute a spark that will chase the darkness. And the darkness, once darkness disappears, everybody will come out and look good, appreciate their surroundings, and appreciate their country, appreciate their motherland. If I want to contribute, where should I go to?
Go to iamcameroon.org, iamcameroon.org, and right on the front page of the website, you have the opportunity to donate. So iamcameroon.org. You could also do Zelle if you live in the United States to Je suis le Cameroun at gmail.org, and you can send money as well. For those of you who do Cash App, you could also do Osing Live. So OSSINGLIVE. That I encourage everyone, go to the website iamcameroon.org and make a donation. And let me make an appeal. Whether you're Cameroonian or you come from any other part of the world, your donation may save a life. That life is a life that is going to contribute tremendously to mankind, because we do not know who the next Bill Gates would be, or who the next Mark Zuckerberg would be, or who the next Elon Musk. It's a life. It's a child that is born, or the next Samuel Eto'o to speak about something from Cameroon, or the next Roger Miller. So let us invest in what is important. And the most important thing is investing in the future of young people. And so if you can just sacrifice $1, $10, $20, just $50, this could make tremendous difference as we look forward to building a national waste management program that would save lives for generations. Recycling factory in Cameroon. Those are all things that we have in the pipeline. Thinking about implementing an educational program that will be in schools so that children can start learning these habits and practicing this. Those are all things that we want to do as part of the education. You start with inspiring, now we want to educate, and the next thing would be, let's start thinking about what kind of policies we can advise that be implemented so that we can catch up with what the future is, with everything that we're talking about climate change, with a population that is growing and growing really, really fast, with limited infrastructure, rural development. We really need to have a policy framework about how we contain and manage the growing, the ever increasing refuge, the refuse that we're going to have because of the growing population. How are we going to do that? How are we going to manage all of these plastics? That's what your donation will be going for. And we will be incredibly transparent and make sure that every dime goes to the project that is needed. We did this with COVID. We get the biggest gift that the government of Cameroon received besides the loan that they got from the IMF. The biggest gift we gave the Cameroon government, $500,000 worth of hand sanitizer. No, nobody. The closest that came to it was UBA that gave them 150 million CFA. If we converted our donation to CFA, it was about $300,000, 300 million CFA, biggest. And we did it, yes, from sitting in the diaspora, but leveraging the network that we have around the world to be able to do it. So please, Cameroonians in the diaspora or anybody that is on it, you can make a contribution to just go to iamcameroon.org. Your donation will be very much appreciated.
Before we get into the final piece, which is I know you have to catch a flight, which we're just going to be tick tack questions. Are you intending to expand this from Cameroon? Because if Cameroon looks good, but Nigeria doesn't look good, Gabon doesn't look good, or Sierra Leone or Ghana, is there any coordination or is there any plan to take this dream of having decent, clean society and community in Cameroon, exporting these countries in Africa that you may have had influence through your network of JCI?
Yes, because I have a similar initiative called I Am Africa, which we had started a few years ago, and the COVID broke the back of the movement. But it's still the same idea. There's currently I Am Zambia. There's Manmai Senegal, which is a translation of I Am Senegal. There's I Am Togo. There is I Am Zimbabwe. So they're already I am Je suis le Gabon. They're already pieces of this expanding. There's I Am Nigeria actually already expanding to different parts of Africa. But of course, the process can be scalable. The process can be repeated. And so too, maybe the challenges will be different, but the outcome will be the mindset,
Very
that we
interesting.
change the mindset of people to take ownership in
Yeah.
creating solutions to their own challenges.
I have been listening very keenly to a number of things: ownership, transformation, uh, civic engagement. I've been listening to those ones, and sustainability. Those are the ones that really tell me that this is not just going to be a one trick pony. It's not going to happen just once, but it's going to happen over and over and potentially replicate itself throughout the continent because that's when the world will begin to. I've been fortunate to have spent most of my career in other places. I know that these things do not happen overnight. It takes time. It takes people taking ownership. It takes some people with the vision like yourself. But I want us to end by doing this short segment in which I'll ask you a quick question. You give me a quick answer. We can wrap it up, and then we'll use this in sharing with our communities, with our networks all through the world. So, first question: um, an unsung hero in the studio with an untold story. He represents an organization, 237 Cleanup Campaign. So, what is your name
Arrey Obenson,
and where do you currently live?
St. Louis, Missouri, in the United States.
But it turns out you're running a major campaign that is changing lives thousands of miles away from where you live in St. Louis. Tell us about 237 cleanup campaign that is mobilizing 5 million people.
The goal of the campaign is to engage, inspire, educate, and engage 5 million Cameroonians to be involved in cleaning cities across Cameroon.
Very interesting. And I know you've had some success, significant success from the time you started. Less than a year in the business, less than a year on the ground. Tell us how many people you have been impacted so far this year.
We believe that we have exceeded our goal of 5 million, engaging more than 5 million people across the country to be involved in this campaign.
What are the major cities that have been involved, and who are some of your major partners?
Some of the major cities include Yaounde, Douala, Yaoundere, Garoua, Maroua, Bamenda, Boya. Some of our partners include Red Plast, which is a refuge collection company, as well as Eco Green, which is a recycling company. But crucial to the realization of this campaign is Let's Do It Cameroon.
Let's Do It Cameroon. Interesting and unsung hero. I will have to explore in future about Let's Do It Cameroon. Tell us, what have been some of the major challenges that you've encountered along this journey? I know it is not easy. Moving a battleship from thousands of miles away remotely, you must have some very, very fine tools, remote control tools. What are those challenges?
Challenges include one, the mobilization of people in the diaspora to support this initiative. That's one. Two, financial limitations to be able to provide the resources and material for the cleanup across the country. Three, obvious challenges which stem and ongoing that affects that mobilization of people on the ground, and also even the distribution of material. The logistic challenges in terms of production deadlines for the materials that were needed to be able, production and distribution deadlines to distribute across the country the materials for the cleanup.
Yes, logistically, I know it can be challenging, especially given the conflict that the country is going through. So, logistics, how do you overcome that? Because there are some cities in Cameroon that are virtually paralyzed. How did you overcome such specific challenges? Because in other countries, they're probably not going through any civil unrest or civil war, civil whatever they call it, crisis, name it. But how did you overcome that to ensure that every corner of the country benefited from it? And you grew up in Victoria. Victoria, of course, I understand that Victoria is some days is paralyzed like the others.
Well, we had to work around those challenges, and in some cases, we didn't even have material being delivered as a result of the challenges. But the most fascinating thing is how people were able to adapt and work with some of the warring groups to be able to collaborate around this initiative, but also to just go ahead and use what they had to get the job done. It was and those challenges are still there, and those, I don't think that those challenges are going away tomorrow. But how do we work with those challenges to be able to achieve the goals at the end of the day? Is that once you are that naive audacity, once you're inspired, you've always find a way to get there, and that's what happened.
And everybody loves a clean environment. Whether you are at a time of peace and a time of war, clean environment is something that everybody appreciates. One last question: how
Yeah.
can we find you to contribute?
Go to iamcameroon.org and make a contribution to this campaign.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Obenson. I know you have to catch a flight. I'm very grateful to you and all the thousands, or should I say millions, of Cameroonians and well wishers and friends of Cameroon that have participated in this project, that are helping to make it a reality. That if one city is clean, if one country is clean, it is putting a smile on the face of Africa. When that happens, everybody will celebrate motherland because everybody wants to go to the motherland. I've seen a hunger for Africa in all parts of the world that I've been to. People have a desire to learn about Africa. People have a desire to enjoy the beauty, the natural beauty, the customs and cultures of Africa. But they can't go to Africa. They can't go to Cameroon. They can't go to Zambia. They can't go anywhere unless our cities look cleaner and a lot more hospitable in terms of sanitation. So thank you so much to you and all the thousands that support your work. It's been a pleasure talking to Mr. Arrey Obenson, A7 campaign. Really appreciate you. Have a wonderful day and a safe flight. See you on the other side, sir.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Story Warrior, checking out and asking you to not take any grudge against the darkness. If anything, light a match, chase away the darkness, because when you do that, the world will be a better place. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.